Welcome everyone to our panel discussion, Speaking of Success, Languages and Careers. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks to the organizers of Global C.R.E.D for highlighting the importance of language learning and for providing credentials for language learners. My name is Stacie Berdan, and I'm a language advocate by way of the business world. I've worked for large multinational corporations in marketing and communications and have held senior leadership positions on an international scale. I've written 6 books on the intersection of globalization and careers, including Raising Global Children, published by ACTFL. I do a lot of public speaking and writing about the value of international experience, study abroad, and learning languages. I'm passionate about the need for everyone to develop a global mindset. And I'm thrilled that the Global Seal of Biliteracy continues to gain traction in school districts across the US, but also in the workplace around the world. And that's what this session is about, the importance and value of languages across all types of professions and industries. The ability to communicate in multiple languages is a valuable commodity in today's job market. People who speak a second language earn, on average, 12% more than those who don't. According to recent research done by the Financial Times, bilingual employees make better managers and leaders. Knowing another language enables you to communicate with colleagues, customers, or clients in other countries and cultures, but it also helps you understand the rich, complex global world we live in, and on a much deeper level. These skills translate across all types of careers, working for large organizations like Google, SpaceX, Habitat for Humanity, or a small business in your local community. Language skills are beneficial if you serve your government as a member of the civil service or in the diplomatic corps, and are just as relevant if you're an engineer, a nurse, an accountant, or a journalist. Whether you speak Russian, Chinese, Portuguese, Hindi, or English as your other language. And that's why we're here, to spread the word that language learning matters not only to your schoolwork, but it can have a significant and positive impact on your personal and professional life. Since we have a wide variety of people attending this conference, I'd like to communicate a few specific things by group. First, students and any parents out there, this message is for you. The past 2, 6, 12 years of studying German, Italian, Arabic, English, or Korean, whatever your language passion, has not been a waste of time, but a gift that should be used as a foundation for more learning, and as a means for differentiating yourself in school, at university, in your job search, and throughout your career, because it will pay off. Keep at it, practice, and don't give up. Language teachers, you are the unsung heroes teaching a subject that many don't appreciate or understand, particularly if it's a language that's not commonly used around the world. But you know better than anyone that bilinguals have more than just language skills, more than just an ability to communicate. They have an enhanced awareness of people's points of views, a deeper understanding that some people have a different perspective, and that's a good thing. It's important to encourage students to keep studying, practicing, and expanding their language capabilities so that they can reap the rewards as they apply to college, in their jobs, their communities, throughout life. University career advisors. As you advise students along their college career paths, encourage them to incorporate a language in their 4-year plan, to include study abroad, and to promote both on their resumes and on their LinkedIn profiles, and proudly at the top, not buried at the bottom. According to research by PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, in which they surveyed more than 4,000 graduates from 44 countries about expectations regarding work, 70% of them expect to use another language at work. The vast majority recognize that international experience and language skills are essential requirements for future leaders, and as such should be cultivated from the very beginning of a graduate's career. So help them prepare now, before they enter the workforce and have to play catch-up. Employers, you reap the rewards of the recipients of the Global Seal of Biliteracy. The data consistently shows that employers are more successful in serving all of their customers and clients, current and future, if they have a diverse workforce. Employees who have had different life experiences, who can speak other languages, who understand different cultural nuances. Why? because these all add up to creating an organization that can speak to a wide range of subjects and provide astute, appropriate, and culturally sensitive service at every level. This is true whether it's a local community business or a large international one. And for those large companies, it's clear that the English share of global GDP has been contracting. Thus, a multilingual workforce is key to growth now and into the future. Your language skills are a gift. Don't squander them, protect them, enhance them, and use them. We have a dynamic panel today ready to share their experience and bring all of these points to life. How have their language skills helped them in their careers thus far? What trends and opportunities do they see emerging in the workforce? How have they kept up their language skills? And much more. I am grateful to our 4 panelists who have taken the time to participate in this event, and I'd like to introduce them now. Yingying Zhou works for ExxonMobil in Shanghai, China. She is the North Asia Pacific Brand Manager for Mobil 1, and her territory includes mainland China, Taiwan, Korea, and Japan, yet she works with teams around the world. A native Chinese speaker, she grew up in China, but studied for a bachelor's degree abroad in Singapore as a government scholar and participated in an exchange program in Germany. She didn't begin studying English in earnest until her university days. Yingying is passionate about early childhood education and served as a volunteer teacher in Cambodia. Maria Villaquiran is a senior manager at EY, Ernst & Young, one of the largest professional service networks in the world. She specializes in the financial services industry and focuses on global banking and capital markets in the area of risk, regulatory compliance, and anti-money laundering. She's based in the US and has worked with clients in Argentina, Brazil, India, Mexico, Singapore, and the United Kingdom. She's fluent in English and Spanish and conversational in Portuguese. Maria has traveled to more than 50 countries and has lived in 10 different cities across 3 continents. Manji is a certified public accountant in both the US and Canada and works as an international tax manager at Assurant, an insurance company. She's based in the US, but works with people from all over the world and particularly enjoys this part of her job, working with people who have different backgrounds, cultures, and experiences. Naz speaks 7 languages and has lived on 4 different continents and traveled through more than 50 countries. She lived in Tanzania for several years and has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro 5 times. Connie Berdan is a 3rd-year mechanical engineering student with a minor in Spanish at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Connie's a native English speaker and has studied Spanish since kindergarten. She was awarded the Seal of Biliteracy upon high school graduation. In addition to her schoolwork, she serves as a Spanish interpreter for parent-teacher conferences and as a student research assistant studying the impact of COVID-19 on undocumented immigrants. Connie has traveled extensively using her language skills and throughout the Spanish-speaking world. She's a triathlete, a wilderness guide, and a surf instructor. Our panelists are multilingual and have had different experiences in the way they've learned languages, when they learned them, and how they use them. This is going to be a great panel. I'd like to begin by asking each of our panelists to answer either one of 2 questions. Why do languages matter to you? Or, what's the greatest advantage to speaking multiple languages? Let's start with you, Naz.
Hi, Stacie. That was some great introduction. And I'll start off by saying, growing up, I didn't really recognize the advantages that I had by being able to communicate in all these languages. And I wish I had the opportunity to attend an event like this where I got some insight on what the advantages were. In my experience, I would bucket these into 2 advantage categories. One is your technical skills, and the second is your soft skills. Now, technical skills, we hear about it all the time. You see it, you communicate, you're able to broaden your horizon because you can reach more people. The soft skills, however, I wasn't aware of it, and not up until very recently, where my former roommate, who has a PhD in education, brought me to light to this. Soft skills such as being able to adapt, being able to problem solve, being able to change environments. These all come from my ability to speak multiple languages. Throughout my career, from my education, starting from high school all the way to my current role, I continuously hear, that Naz, you have great abilities to adapt in various situations. You are receptive to change. You can problem solve. But I was never able to pinpoint these to the fact that these skills come from the sole source that I can speak in so many languages. Other than this, when you add on the fact that we're moving into a globalization world, having the ability to speak and communicate with various other people, it's just an advantage that we haven't even seen the benefits yet.
That's wonderful. I love that. Great answers as to why languages matter and the great advantages to them. Maria, what's your story? Which question would you like to answer?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm super excited to be here. This is such an important subject. I think what makes everyone so incredibly talented in this panel is the ability for all of us to not only speak another language, but also be an advocate for it. From my personal experience, I love what Naz said, right? Bucketing the importance of learning languages is critical. For me, I'm going to talk more a little bit about like what are the advantages of learning another language and why it matters. For me, number one is inclusion. I think that going to school, being bilingual, understanding different cultures and respecting that another culture is so important, and being able to understand where people, whether it's the workplace or school or college, they have different backgrounds. So it's celebrating the differences that bring us together, and being able to be curious about a different language and being able to stick to it is critically important for everybody. I remember being in college, and I'm conversational in Portuguese. I'm not 100% fluent, but I remember taking it for 2 years in Georgetown. And then 2 years later, I was at work and they were like, hey, do you know Portuguese? Because I need to send you to Brazil to do this work. And I was the only person that was comfortable enough. I knew Spanish, but comfortable enough that I had only 2 years to know this language. And that clearly aligned me to a different career path, which was she can be somebody who we can send abroad and take these opportunities. So just kind of linking learning a language in school and the opportunity that took me to Brazil and understanding that was incredible, right? So inclusion, career opportunities, and being curious and accepting of everyone's culture is incredibly important from a language perspective.
Wonderful, wonderful. Why languages matter. So much great stuff already. Yingying, how about you?
And thanks, Stacie. And it's really my pleasure to be here and agree with what Maria and Naz just mentioned just now. And to me, like why language matters to me, I would say, to me, language is really the very important tool to connect with people and also to establish meaningful relationship with people. And personally speaking, I think language definitely open up many new opportunities through different stage in life. Like for myself, when I was a young student growing up in China, being able to speak in English, I think really opens up the opportunity for me to study in Singapore and also to have broader overseas experience, such as participating in a summer job in the United States, do an exchange program in Germany. And this experience really enabled me to embrace the cultural difference at relatively young stage in life. And now as an employee, I think being able to communicate with multiple cultural colleagues in the workplace is very, very important, especially if you are working in a multinational organization. Like for example, my company covers business worldwide. And for me, like being able to communicate with colleagues based in different countries in English is really fundamental requirement. So I think to me, language is really very important.
Wonderful. Sounds like it opened so many doors for you. That's just terrific. Connie, how about you?
Well, first off, thank you very much for including me on this panel, and thank you to everyone viewing for tuning in today. So, in my opinion, languages are great because they expand the number of people you can communicate with, learn from, create bonds with. And this is especially because languages expose us to new cultures and different ways of life, as well as opening the door to new opportunities in work, school, or just fun, like travel.
Terrific. Great. Opens opportunities. Wonderful. Hopefully everybody listening and watching sees and agrees with all of these, and you have your own reasons why languages matter. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Specifically, how have your language skills played a role in your career so far, Maria? You mentioned the point about knowing some conversational Portuguese and going to Brazil, but what else? How have they played a role in your career?
Absolutely. So I'm a consultant by trade. I've been a consultant for 8.5 years, and I work for Ernst & Young, which is a global firm. We're in over 86 different countries. We're 300 people, and we're a very diverse firm. So for example, my current project is global. I'm based in New York City, but I have a team in India, and I have colleagues who are also in Europe. So I have to manage different time zones. But in order to connect with them, right, Yingying said this, you need to build relationships and be curious about other people. So when I mention, hey, I'm from Colombia in South America, they're like, oh my God, I've been there. I took some Spanish classes. So you sort of start building relationships. You're also expanding when you travel and meet them, like what Connie said. If you're really interested in other cultures and exploring. So when you actually open up yourself and understand other languages, you're actually connecting with people even better. And because you're connecting and providing such an inclusive environment, you're even able to perform better because you have that sort of inclusion in yourself, right, to be better and work better. So like I mentioned, we're a global firm. It's also super important to build new ideas and new offering for our clients. Therefore, we're able to even be greater at it because we're coming together as a team. We're even learning different languages. And I understand, obviously, I have colleagues here who are from Indian descent, and they're able to connect with all of our groups and teams out there. So that's really interesting. And for myself, I've lived in Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, clearly aligned myself into the international space, learning Spanish. So all the opportunities I've had is because of my language skills. And we did have individuals who were not native Spanish speakers, but were individuals like Connie, right? Like throughout their lives, they knew Spanish and they were able to defend themselves. So they were able to get a lot of leadership opportunities just because they knew the language. And leadership was more comfortable in sending individuals out there to Latin America, or even when they're going to Asia, because they have that cultural connect and openness. And I think that's very, very critical for any career advancement.
Wonderful. So inclusion opened up doors, creating much greater creativity and thought leadership, problem solving. Oh, I just love it. Love it. Yingying, how about you?
Yeah, I fully agree with Maria. Really, the language skills help you become more inclusion and also help you to advance in your career development. Like for me, I've been working for 7 years all along in ExxonMobil, both based in Singapore, the South Asia Pacific markets, and now based in Shanghai, covering the North Asia Pacific market. So I think language skill not only help me to be more confident and assertive in terms of communications, but also help me personally to improve my work efficiency. So this definitely advanced my career development so far. So for me as an engineering student growing up in China, so when I first started working, I was not equipped with the sufficient level of business terminologies in the workplace. So at the very beginning, when I started working in Singapore, I would say that for each meeting preparation, like even for email writing, it took me longer than others to prepare. And during presentation, I was not as confident as well. But however, with the increasing experience and also the practice in the real world, I can see the change and improvement of myself. So now being able to communicate effectively with colleagues, both in English and Chinese, across the different market in the company, I think this really enables me to take more and more positions covering cross markets and also taking bigger and bigger portfolios in the company. So I think definitely this advanced my career development so far, together with my business skills improvement. And other than that part, agree with Maria's side, this really helps me to establish the meaningful relationship with colleagues. And that's another critical part in the business workplace, that you need to understand other people's perspectives and being able to communicate.
That's so important. Yes. Adding on to that, you need to be able to build relationships and communicate, and being able to understand the language and the cultural nuances makes a big difference. That's wonderful. Naz, how about you?
Maria, I think you just stole what was right in my words, and Yingying, you exactly expressed what I feel happening as well. To add on to both, where I've seen growth in my career, and every time anyone has asked me for one tip, I've always, forced networking. And being able to communicate in, it doesn't matter if you speak the same language as another person. It gives you those social cues when you can communicate in multiple languages, and you're able to pick up on those, and you're able to build those relationships that, whenever the opportunity comes about, you're the person that person remembers because of the ability to connect with them. So I think being able to speak in so many languages has given me advantages in terms of building relationships year over year, time over time. And I can't express it enough. I think it's so important in terms of the networking world.
That's great. So for all of you language learners out there, know that you don't have to be perfectly proficient. You can know a little, you can know a little bit, you can struggle, you can try, and it makes a difference. It sounds like all different types of levels, and as you improve as the years go by. That's great. So Connie, you're still a university student. You were awarded the Seal of Biliteracy upon graduation from high school. Why was this important to you? There are a lot of young students now listening, tuning in, hopefully. Why should they work toward pursuing the same?
Well, simply put, the Seal of Biliteracy recognized all the effort and hard work I had put into my language, which is Spanish. That those 13 years of kindergarten through high school education had culminated in something tangible, something that's visible to an employer, a university. It showed that I had learned something, because time alone does not necessarily mean understanding it or skill. Obviously, it tends to contribute to your understanding, but for instance, someone can play soccer for a dozen years and still be beaten by the local middle schooler. So having this Seal of Biliteracy can set you apart from your peers, because it shows that you actually are competent in the language. You don't just have the years of it. You're nationally recognized. Therefore, I believe that students should pursue it, because it will set them apart and kind of give them just an overall sense of accomplishment, and that everything they did and studied this whole time was worth it.
That's great. And I hope that everyone's school has it, and you can take the test and put it proudly on your resume and your LinkedIn profile and things moving forward. That's great. Moving on to another question. So thanks for that one. Hopefully it's inspiring everybody. I'm fired up, certainly. What kind of opportunities do you see in the workplace if students know more than one language? So you've talked a lot about these soft skills and how it's helped you individually, but what do you see now? And what do you see kind of in the future, touching on some different things? Let's start with you, Maria.
Absolutely. So it's really interesting right now, because I have to staff engagements with very key clients. The first thing I look for is actually somebody who has language skills. And yes, absolutely, soft skills matter. But whenever I deal with international clients, I think for me, it's very important for somebody to have a social cue, like what Naz said, right? You can't teach social cue. It's very hard to do it. Let's put it that way. You can teach it, but it's hard to do it. So individuals that have language skills are able to help me build a better team. They are able to build better relationships. And then two, they can actually execute the work, right? If I do by any reason need to send them abroad without when I was sent abroad when I was 23, 24 years old, you can trust them that if they do have to go outside of the hotel, they'll be able to defend themselves. They'll be able to execute the work. So I do think that those things matter. And the opportunities are there, absolutely. I also think that for a student, if you do have the opportunity to study abroad, do so. I cannot tell you enough how many times I've had conversations with my clients and even my own leadership around their experiences abroad, around what they did during school, or why they love to travel, right? Obviously, before COVID and before this pandemic, individuals loved to travel and were ready to go. So those conversations matter. They matter when you first meet a person, they matter when you continue the relationship, and they matter when you're cultivating a relationship. So I do think people with language skills are able to execute better at the job, building relationships. So your career advancements are across the board, because at the end of the day, networking matters and your connections matter, and cultivating that is actually super important for your career.
Great. Well said. Well said. Great. Connie, do you want to add something to that?
Okay, so I'll preface this by saying that I live in Southern California, which has a very high population of Spanish speakers, so definitely knowing Spanish really helps. So just a brief anecdote. So last week when I was in downtown LA, someone asked me in Spanish for directions to the hospital. Like they didn't even use English at all. So now I didn't know because I don't actually live in downtown Los Angeles, but it made me think, what if you were the local gas station owner or the bus driver who did know? I bring this up because a lot of times we think of language skills and careers at multinationals or foreign workplaces and otherwise very white collar professional context. But the reality is that no matter how local your workplace is or what your career is, languages can benefit it. So, for example, I work part-time as a Spanish interpreter for parent-teacher conferences, and many people think that the reason for these is that the parent doesn't speak English. And while this is true, we should also consider the reverse, that I am needed also because the teacher doesn't speak Spanish. And with so many kids as ESL or English as a second language students, a Spanish-speaking teacher could greatly benefit their students. But this discussion isn't to talk about teaching. It's to show how a wide variety of careers can be benefited by language learning. If you're a teacher, a store owner, a doctor, or a nurse, chances are you've had a customer who doesn't speak your native language. Therefore, the benefits of second languages are all there, even if language skills might not be listed in the job description. And this can be done within the United States. The skills aren't only advantageous or necessary for studying or working abroad.
Wonderful. Great. And so many dozens of languages spoken across the United States, and depending on the geography, you're right. Excellent example, Connie. Great. Like that. Love that. Yingying, how about you? What do you see?
Yeah, so first of all, I really love what Maria and Connie mentioned. Language skill really helps to advance the career development, no matter what type of job you are doing. So you see, in the current society, there are so many international firms across the globe, and being able to speak a foreign language as a student, I think it definitely opens up more job opportunities for you, right? And also brings the chance to know more people, understand more cultural awareness, and with high chance for an overseas assignment, which is a very exciting and valuable experience for young people. And even if not for overseas assignment, I would say it gives you the chance or high chance to take more markets where at earlier of your stage in career, you have better chance to gain tremendous experience and business sense for the different markets of your international business. And this will definitely set a very solid foundation for your further career development, especially if you want to position to a senior level in the organization. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. Again, opportunity, advancement, jobs. I love it, especially now. It's tough. It's tough for some people to get a job these days. So language skills can really make a difference. Yeah. Naz, how about you? What do you have to add to this?
I will go back to just what you said, Stacie. Nowadays, finding jobs is not as easy. Many students coming out into the workplace all have MBAs. You have, an undergrad. You have what you. One thing that will differentiate you and stand out as a niche is languages, because not a lot of people are focusing on that. And in this era of globalization, one missing piece to get us there, one world, one culture, is languages and culture. And to bridge, for a student to be able to bridge that with languages, it's an excellent fit. You're only going to see success with the ability to communicate and speak a different language.
So true, so true. So it's a differentiator. It's super important now. Don't worry if you're not proficient. That's what I've heard. You've got something, go with it, continue, practice, continue to learn. Excellent. Yeah. So Naz and Maria, excuse me, I'm going to ask you a question, hypothetical. Just say in your company now, or make up a company, it doesn't have to be relevant specifically to what you're doing. You're looking to fill a position. Would you give preference to, I think you both said so, to a language speaker? So let me change this a little bit. So you'd give preference to a language speaker. You've said that, but why? What is it about them, and what is it about the job? And give me maybe some specifics, a specific story, an anecdote, so younger people who haven't actually entered the workforce really can understand what it is that we're talking about here. How about Naz? How about you start?
Absolutely, I would give them preference. And solely going back to my first skills, soft skills, these I know I can vouch for. Someone that's put in the time to learn a different language will be able to adapt in a changing environment, will be able to be a great problem solver, will be able to stand up to what the job demands are, will build relationships, because no matter what company I'm at, or no matter whether it's a multinational company, a private sector, public sector, your vendors and customers in that day and era are going to be from different walks of life. And being able to connect with them, build relationships, it's a winner for me.
Wonderful. So even if they speak a language that you're not necessarily using in day-to-day or commerce or with clients, just the fact that they know another language indicates the problem solving, the creativity, the ability to think differently. So even if it's not the right one or the one that you're going to need, like I think you mentioned some of your skills, Naz, some of your language skills, it actually helps you hone in on those other types of soft skills. Great. Maria, how about you?
So I'm going to be a little bit futuristic in this, but I studied international business. That was my concentration in my business degree. And right now, I don't believe there's international business. I think business is international, right? Like, I think that we are all so diverse. All of our companies are diverse because they're in, multiple places. Even you, Connie, in school, I'm sure you go into a classroom and it's very diverse. Race, ethnicity, religion, everyone is so diverse no matter where you go nowadays. And I currently believe that because we're so diverse in the workplace and we're so diverse wherever we go, accepting of other cultures, accepting of other languages, understanding other languages are just going to take you farther in life, because you're going to be able to hone in into different social cues, respect, admire, and be more inclusive, right? So in my current role right now, I work with 2 African Americans. I work with 3 Muslims, 5 leaders that I have in India, leading a whole team. Like I mentioned, we're in Europe, we're in the US, actually in 5 different cities in the US. And we're all in the same room figuring out solutions to our clients' problems, right? We need to be diverse mindsets. We need to think differently. And that's how we become better leaders and build a better working world, which is a slogan that EY has, which I love. And it's essentially taking the power of everyone and putting it together. And embracing that really starts with a new language. And like you, Stacie, mentioned, you really don't have to be fluent in a different language. It's 100% a plus, and you should definitely strive to do so. But myself, I'm conversational in Portuguese. I embrace it. I have that because I'm so curious about the culture. I lived there for over 3 months. And I took it in school, and I furthered it with Duolingo, and it was great. And I practiced it. And right now my boyfriend's Italian. I have Duolingo Italian, and his family loves it. I'm trying to connect with them. So, and in New York City, you can walk around and you can see, an Afghanistani restaurant, you see an Italian restaurant, a Mexican restaurant. So we have to think differently, and in the business world, in our world today, it's about connecting with people, because that's how you actually get to bigger opportunities. So I just, I understand borders, I understand papers, I understand borders everywhere. But I do think right now in our global world, we're just so diverse that we just have to embrace language. And language is where we start. So we have to embrace each other, and languages start earlier on, whether you know the language or you're learning it.
Well said. Wonderful. Love it. Both answers great. Naz and Maria, terrific. So they're the hiring managers in this hypothetical. Yingying and Connie, we're going to turn that question around. If you were interviewing for a job at a company, and it doesn't have to be multinational, any kind of a company, how would you talk up and sell your language skills to the hiring manager? Yingying, let's start with you.
Okay, thanks, Stacie. First of all, I really love inclusion and diversity. That's very important. And for me, if I want to tell a new employer about my language skill, so frankly speaking, I'm not a professional language learner or speaker. So I only started to learn basic English when I was 12. So I would say my language skill was really basically gained through my working experience. And without any official certificate in terms of language, I would say I still do not see that as a barrier, because since I started working, I've been covering different markets in the Asia Pacific markets, including Singapore, Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, like Japan and Korea. So for all these markets I covered, the language we use to communicate is English. And I do not see that as a barrier, and which also helped me to gain a lot of cross-cultural understanding for all these different markets. So I would say, in terms of language, you use it. Application is still the most important, and as long as you are able to communicate and express yourself, so that's the most important thing. So far, I'm confident with my language skills to work in a cross-cultural organization. And what's more, I've never stopped learning. So learning from everyone and improving every day. Yeah.
That is also a wonderful thing, that always continuing to learn and being confident in your ability. You know, you speak great English, Yingying. I mean, it's wonderful. So that's terrific. That's terrific. Connie, what would you say?
Well, thank you, Yingying, for prefacing that really nicely. So going with the fact that if it were a multinational company, I would probably start off by targeting my pitch to that company itself by knowing their relevant international locations for my language skills. Like for instance, many automotive companies have locations in Mexico, so I would emphasize that even if my job were domestic, that my language skills would give me flexibility down the line to either work in those locations or to simply communicate with other workers in those locations, which is something a lot of people can't say. And I would also be sure to mention my work as a part-time interpreter to show that I have the ability to quickly transition between languages, as well as using my minor in the Seal of Biliteracy to prove that I do indeed have these skills.
Good. That's good. Great hypotheticals. Wonderful. So some wonderful tips here as to how we can do it. And I think kind of you touched on something that's really important, which is for anyone actually pursuing a job and wanting to actually showcase any of their skills, doing research about that company, that organization, that nonprofit, where they do have operations, how they feel about international assignments and languages, really important, because you'll know if you're actually speaking to people who really do respect and appreciate these skills. Not everybody does yet. The world is changing, certainly, but that's great. All right. So languages offer much more than just the ability to communicate. We've already talked about that. What other benefits have you experienced in and out of the workplace? And I know we've talked a lot about this, so see if we can come up with something. We can share a story maybe that, again, brings it to life, because we've talked about inclusion, diversity, adaptability, problem solving. So Connie, let's start with you. What are some of the benefits you've experienced in or out of the workplace because of your language skills?
I'd say that one of the biggest things language learning teaches you is compassion. So, for example, I see these parents who want to talk to their kids' teacher, but the language barrier takes away this ability to communicate. And through my student research about undocumented immigrants with this pandemic, COVID-19, hearing about how language is a restricting factor to their ability to get information or resources, rather than a lack of effort, which is what many people might think. And so you sort of understand their plight and their situation more. And as all of you language learners know, learning a language is hard. So it's always appreciated when people help make it easier, which is why it's so important in the workplace, because even if the language of business is English, if you speak the local language or attempt to speak the language of your coworkers, it shows that you care, and that can go a long way. And additionally, from my experience, if you are a STEM student and also studying a language, it shows versatility and communication skills, which is just overall something that a lot of fellow job or grad school applicants don't have.
Great examples. I love that. Compassion. The world can never have enough compassion. And that's a great example. Thanks for that. Naz, how about you? Want to add to that? What other benefits?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying language and culture go hand in hand. They're almost so closely related. And to take it outside the box a little bit, because I speak so many languages, the one aptitude I've always had is travel, and to learn different cultures, to learn different ways of doing things, to learn different ways of thinking, to volunteer when the opportunity presents. These are all things that language has offered me. aside from that, when I put it into perspective in my current role right now, my role as an international tax manager with Assurant forces me, actually allows me, I should say, to communicate with people from all different parts of the world, from LATAM, Canada, Asia Pacific, and all these people share different experiences. And what I love about my job, going back to what Maria is saying, is the ability to learn about these cultures and to share what my experiences and my languages have offered me throughout my career with these people, and build relationships that are going to be everlasting. I know from already of 15 years of experience, some relationships that I've built 10 years ago were because of my ability to communicate with them in different languages. Those relationships are just really strong, and they'll last for a lifetime.
That's a beautiful thing. Connectivity, just thinking of how many more people each of you, all of you actually know and connect with just for the human experience is really a wonderful thing. That's great. Yingying, how about you? What other kinds of benefits have you noticed?
Yeah, I just want to add on a little bit on what Naz just mentioned in terms of culture and friendship. So to me, I agree that understand more about other people's culture helps you to establish like friendship with people across different parts of the world. And to me, that's the most rewarding part in the workplace. So no matter what kind of business you are doing, essentially you are dealing with people. And having friendship with people, I think that's the most important thing and rewarding thing in life. So that's one of the area that I see language more than a tool to communicate. And also, after understanding other people's culture and perspective, I think it definitely helps you to address conflicts and solve issues in a more proper way with understanding other people's background and perspectives. And also, other than that, I think language helps you to improve your adaptability. So, taking myself as an example, I think generally speaking, it is relatively easier for you to adapt to changes. So, working in different locations, be it in Singapore, United States, or Shanghai, I think it helps me to adapt faster.
Definitely. I love that. So adaptability, but I also like the fact, I mean, the friendships, beautiful. So it's not all about work, even though we are talking about that. It is friendships, but it's also that connectivity as well. Great. How about you, Maria?
You know, the biggest thing I would have said is adaptability. But I also feel like you build a lot of gratitude. Gratitude in the sense that you build pride for your own culture, right? Sometimes I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, I'm from Colombia. I want to say all these things to build relationships, or even, because you're excited about your culture and learning about other cultures. So definitely gratitude for where you come from, gratitude for where you are, where you're going. Super important. And you learn through that by embracing other cultures and embracing other people who speak other languages. And I will play again the adaptability card because it teaches you to, because of your social cues, it kind of teaches you where things are appropriate and where things aren't. Some other cultures are more conservative than others. And it teaches you that in some scenarios, you could be a little bit more of who you are. And in other scenarios, you adapt to what would be appropriate, whether it's a workplace or more personal. So it really just depends. But I would say gratitude and adaptability would be two of the greatest things that you learn from languages.
Those are wonderful, wonderful summaries. And the adaptability is interesting because it is one of those soft skills that's identified as the top 3 that the future global workforce needs and must have. Because as you've all mentioned, we've all mentioned globalization. So we already are working in a global world, but also because things change so quickly, right? Our half-lives are very quick. I mean, even what's going on right now with COVID-19 and the pandemic, everybody has had to adapt. So it's a great skill to have. So that's a wonderful thing. And this has been a wonderful conversation filled with so much rich insight, deep insight, but also a lot of practical tips, which is terrific. As we wrap up, I'd like to ask each of you to offer one final piece of advice. It could be to a language learner, a teacher, career counselors, employers. Those are kind of the groups of our audiences. Let us know which group you're giving your advice to so they can listen up in case they're, wandering a little. Let's see. Let's start with you, Naz.
Don't hold back. This applies to all groups. When you have the opportunity to learn a language and share the fact that you know a different language, do not hesitate to spread that knowledge.
Awesome. Yingying, how about you?
I think my recommendation is really more for those who are not professional language students, foreign students like myself, who are not major in language but still want to pursue an international career. So I think the key is be confident, keep practicing, and you will be rewarded with the right level of competency in the workplace. And you will also be rewarded with unexpected, beautiful relationships in the workplace.
Wonderful. Connie, how about you?
So this is more for any students out there, but I would recommend to keep up your language learning through college. A lot of people think that it's too much work with their regular major, but you can just actually look into a few classes because from my experience, there are quite a few classes that you can do what's called double dip. So you can find a language class that counts for your GE or your general education requirement. So you have to take the GE anyway, but you get to do it in a language, and so it improves your language skills, and those classes are generally cooler than some of the other Gs. So it's a lot more manageable than you might think, even if you don't only take a few classes and don't pursue an entire minor or major.
Great advice. And I'm going to actually flag that for university career counselors or advisors as well. Encourage students to take language if they've had some, even if they haven't, just to start over, because yeah, it's manageable. You can do it. That's why you're there, to learn. Great. Okay, Maria, how about you?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest advices that I would say to anybody, whether you're a student or somebody really helping students like career counselors and whatnot, stay curious. I think that's what drives a lot of us, whether it's learning a language or seeking opportunities, is we got to be curious and strive to do anything that we want to do. So like, don't stop learning, be curious, and explore the world, other cultures, other languages. Because the opportunities are really endless.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. Thank you, everybody. This has been terrific. It's been just a pleasure for me to facilitate this wonderful conversation as part of the Global CRED process. Thanks to all of you attendees out there. Hope this discussion has convinced or reconfirmed for you how important your language learning is in school, in the workplace, in life, in friendship, in everything actually that we do. So thank you and good luck.